Time's up. The public confidence in our democratic system is rightfully in question. Explosive allegations of foreign interference from senior security officials ignored by the highest levels of government, including the PM himself, splashed all over the front pages of our newspapers, have Canadians asking a couple simple questions. What did the Prime Minister know, and when did he know it? The NDP have a choice to make. Will they vote for transparency and answers on Beijing's interference in our elections, or will they vote for the Prime Minister's cover-up? Will they vote to cover up what the Prime Minister knew, when he knew it, and what he did or didn't do about it? For those watching at home, here's what we do know. It starts with sums of money up to $1 million that were given to causes near and dear to the Prime Minister, including a donation of nearly $200,000 to the Trudeau Foundation and a gift of $50,000 to put a statue of Pierre Trudeau up. These transfers were arranged by a billionaire who was described in the Globe and Mail as a senior official in a network of state promoters around the world. That's a quote. He appeared at Liberal Party fundraisers in the intimate presence of the Prime Minister and according to sources, was reimbursed for his activities from the Communist Party in Beijing. This should raise concern. So again, two questions remain. What did the Prime Minister know, and when did he know about it? And again, the NDP have a choice to make today. Today they have a simple choice. Do they want to know, or will they vote for this Prime Minister's continued cover-up? But back to what we know, the goal of these endeavours, everything I just talked about, was to curry favour with the government that was perceived to be friendlier to communist interests. As one official quoted saying, red is good, blue is bad. They sought cash for access, they sought positive trade terms, they sought international cooperation. And by most accounts, the relationship was going swimmingly well. And many in Beijing were, quote unquote, extremely pleased. So again, what did the Prime Minister know, and when did he know it? And will the NDP show some courage today when they vote? Or I should say tomorrow when they vote? Will they vote to cover up the Prime Minister? Will they vote with them, or will they vote with Canadians? So let's fast forward to 2018. More of what we know. The association between Canada and China begins to sour. However, senior communist officials saw another opportunity to destabilize and discredit elections here in Canada to gain greater influence in our country. They had the goal of electing a Liberal minority government, one that would be friendlier to the Communist Party than the alternatives, but also one that would be unstable and marked by backroom deals and infighting. One senior diplomat said it best: Beijing likes it when the parties in Parliament are fighting each other, whereas there is a majority, the party in power can implement policies that do not favour the PRC. We know they waged an unprecedented campaign to make that ideal a reality. They meddled in nomination process to get their preferred candidates chosen. They funneled money to 11 candidates in the GTA alone. They organized volunteers. They coerced and intimidated voters. That was all in the newspapers. CSIS uncovered evidence of this interference, but according to sources, the warnings of our intelligence agencies were ignored. Again, in the papers. So again, what did the Prime Minister know, and when did he know it? That's why we're here today. And we're also here to see whether the NDP agree. Or will they cover up the Prime Minister? Will they cover up the interference? Will they cover up what he knew and when he knew about it? The National Security and Intelligence Committee of parliamentarians gave a specific warning that meddling from Beijing was eroding the foundations of our fundamental institutions, including our democracy itself. It doesn't get much more serious than that. With all of that out in the open, the Liberal Party failed to overturn those nominations of compromised candidates that were brought directly to their attention, according to what was written. They failed to seriously grasp the message offered by our security agencies, according to what was written. And in fact, they failed to take any action at all. So I'll ask again, what did the Prime Minister know, and when did he know it? That's the question today. The communist strategy worked so well that it was repeated in 2021. Possibly even on a wider scale. Misinformation and disinformation were rampantly and blatantly spread to voters. Preferred candidates promoted, opposed candidates were targeted. One senior diplomat from Beijing even boasted about having had defeated 2 Conservative MPs in the last election. This is known. It's in the public domain. And no one on the other side is able to give Canadians a single rebuttal saying that it's not true. We've asked. So again, I ask, what did the Prime Minister know and when did he know it? That's why we're here. There's evidence that the answer is a substantial amount. The Prime Minister's own National Security Advisor confirmed that she briefed the Prime Minister multiple times on foreign interference. CSIS intelligence was again shared, but again, warnings were ignored and no substantial action was taken. There's evidence that Beijing's strategy is working. They've opened up police stations in our own country to harass and survey free people living here. And it's crickets from the Liberals. A scientist fired from the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg was named on several documents in China related to discoveries from her time working in the federal government. Several of our universities have collaborated with scholars associated with the communist regime. The government has vacillated on important issues relating to national security like Huawei. We've seen a pattern here in our own country. Why would anyone conclude that the absence of doing anything at all, this doesn't get worse? Canadians need to know that their government is at least putting the interests of how to stop this, or at least answer the basic questions that Canadians have. This is cloaked in secrecy by a Prime Minister, daily, frankly, ranting from a podium about how everybody should learn a lesson, or that we take this seriously, or that everybody is racist. That's what we hear from the Prime Minister, but never a single answer about this. So what did the Prime Minister know, and when did he know it? Empty platitudes isn't going to cut it. A secret committee having secret evidence, providing secret conclusions to the Prime Minister himself, who can redact those documents, isn't going to cut it. Telling everyone that it's important and continuing not to do anything about it isn't going to cut it. But our efforts have been met with never-ending spin and the ever so familiar playbook that we've seen time and time again. Deny, deflect, divide, distract. It's like a recipe. They always use the same one. It's time for unfettered access to officials, including the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford. Documents, briefings, all at committee, all out in the open. It's time to shine a light on foreign interference, just like our intelligence agency says is the way to root it out. It's time for answers. Mr. Speaker, it's time to end the charade. The Prime Minister has run out of excuses. He's run out of other people to blame. It seems that he'll run out of people to appoint that are his friends to important positions. The NDP shouldn't be giving him cover today. The Liberals have been filibustering a motion for hours on end at committee, and that's the reason that we're here. What are they hiding? It must be bad. Why else would they go through this whole process? Why else would they hide at every turn? Why else would they continue to spin and attack and divide? That's not really behavior of people who are innocent. This is about our election integrity and the integrity of our democracy, and it's about every member in this House. And it's time, at any time there are even questions about those processes, we owe it to every Canadian nothing less than the most detailed explanations and answers. We do that through this motion, and not by listening to members of the government carry water for the Prime Minister or take orders about filibustering. I have a question, and I know that Canadians are wondering the same thing. Does anybody over there have any courage? Does anybody ever over there wonder what the Prime Minister knew and when he knew it? Did anyone over there bother to ask? What did we all know about this? If they want to talk out the clock at a committee process they control, then it's time that we put it in the hands of parliamentarians interested in the actual truth. And it's time for the NDP to show some courage when it matters, instead of the bluster that we hear at the podium, only to be disappointed by the unwavering support they constantly give to this government. Anything less than a complete disclosure is not good enough for Canadians, and anything less than full answers won't be accepted by the opposition. What did the Prime Minister know, and when did he know it? We need to find out.
Question.